So, welcome everyone. I'm Alexander Mihalcea, and today we have on one of the industry leaders, Emma Barber, Managing Director of DGrade Clothing. Welcome, Emma. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm excited to have you on the podcast today too. And I'm sure you're going to be of great value for the audience.
I hope so.
Now, before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what DGrade Clothing does?
Of course, yeah. So we were established in 2010 in the UAE with the sole purpose of trying to se- increase segregation rates and increase recycling in the region and repurposing PET plastic into new items that are useful, practical, and we focus solely on textiles.
Okay, okay, that's fascinating. What inspired you to create DGrade Clothing? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
So my husband had been in manufacturing of regular manufacturing textiles for many years. But in 2010, when we came to live in Dubai and we saw such a huge amount of waste and the lack of recycling, he decided that he really wanted to get into something that would make a difference. And he's decided at that stage to focus on recycling and repurposing plastic and only making recycled polyester.
Okay, okay. And for example, what was your background before starting this venture?
Well, my background was also in the fashion industry, but not so much in manufacturing. So I came from a true buying and merchandising background, working for high street fashion and working with teams for really blue chip corporations in the UK, American companies, and then I came out to the Middle East with a job.
Okay, interesting, interesting. And also, could you share the story of how DGrade was founded in 2010 and what inspired your focus on recycled fabrics?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned, Chris had a previous background in regular manufacturing. But in the UK, he'd been very involved in surfing and Surfers Against Sewage. And he really wanted to do something that was going to make a difference. And of course, we wanted to try and shine focus on pollution, plastic in the oceans, that kind of thing. And we just felt that Dubai had a lot of opportunity. There was a way to do it. Chris had already got a lot of great relationships with factories that were starting to look at this thing. And so he really kind of focused on it and spent a lot of time developing high quality fabrics, working with companies that could recycle polyester. And it all sort of came together around that.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating. And basically, what were the biggest challenges in establishing a sustainable textile business in the UAE?
That's a good question. To start with, when we began in 2010, there wasn't a lot of talk around sustainability. We're a B2B business. We don't want to make extra stuff in the world, but we want to provide companies who already need uniforms with a sustainable way of doing that. So one of the challenges then was to really try and convince companies that sustainability was an important part of their future, that they needed to really focus on ways that they could be greener, let's say. It was hard at that time because nobody was doing it. And our costs were higher. We were still in the early days of setting up our supply chains. And so, people might have talked the talk a bit, but they didn't really want to pay for it. And that has got easier over the years. We've streamlined supply chains and brought down our costs, although it is still a challenge. And also another problem here is that the banks were a little bit loath to support companies in our industry. So getting trade finance and paying for orders and things like that up front was a challenge for us. So yeah, it has been difficult.
Okay, I imagine. And also, could you explain the process of creating high quality fabrics from recycled PET bottles?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question because people are worried that is it good quality? Is it going to hurt my skin?
Yeah.
So all polyester is the same. whether it's made from virgin material or whether it's recycled. So we are really take a lot of effort to make sure that our products are high quality. That's really important to us. We use a long staple fibre yarn, and that produces microfibers and all those things. So the process starts with collecting bottles.
Yeah.
The bottles are then washed and cleaned and flaked and turned into a very high quality flake. The flake is then extruded. It's through a heating and melting process. And when it's extruded, it turns into a very soft fiber. So this fiber can go into making things like stuffings and carpets and those kind of things. But we upstream it to make it into a high quality yarn. And we're very proud of our yarn, and we've actually trademarked it. So it's called green spun. So our green spun yarn is then either knitted or woven into high quality products.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting. Then, for example, what are the key environmental benefits of using recycled polyester compared to virgin materials?
Yeah, that's really key. So when we repurpose polyester, when you compare it to making conventional polyester, we save 20% water, 50% energy, we reduce carbon emissions by 55%, and we don't use any oil, which is a finite resource and obviously needs to be conserved. So it's a very green process. And why use a bottle and then throw it away when that bottle could have a new life and be turned into something with a long life that can also then be recycled?
Yeah, right. And for example, how do you ensure the quality and durability of your recycled fabrics?
Yeah, so there's a lot of certification and process that has to be adhered to ensure that we can guarantee quality and give our customers the comfort that we've got truly post-consumer recycled, which is
Yeah.
important, and high quality. So we only work with factories who have GRS, which is Global Recycling Standard, and also ISO accreditations, worker welfare, and all of those kind of things. And we can provide those certificates to all of our customers.
Okay, I see. That's very interesting. But also, could you elaborate on why the existing solutions weren't meeting these needs in the beginning?
Well, existing solutions are mainly conventional polyester. There's not a lot of recycled polyester being provided. So if you think around 65 million tons of polyester is made every year, it's in
Yeah.
huge demand. Only about 4% of that is made from recycled.
Wow.
And we really want to change that because recycled polyester performs exactly the same way. And there's no point using resources to make a bottle and using resources to make polyester when it's the same thing. So this is about education, awareness, answering the questions that you've answered, that yes, it's high quality. No, it won't do you any damage. Yes, it can be recycled. And people don't know about it.
Yeah, sure. And now, walk us through how DGrade clothing addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique?
Well, I mentioned education. So when we first started, we realized that it was a big gap between people thinking they knew what we did and actually knowing. And also, people didn't understand about recycling, they didn't know much about sustainability. So we set up our Simply Bottles initiative, which is an educational outreach program. We work with schools, businesses, corporations at events. We have about 400,000 students involved in the program, completely free for the schools. And then we work, as I say, with businesses, trying to educate employees about how they can be more sustainable at home, in the office. And we've done really great things at events. So, for example, we worked quite closely with the Yas Marina circuit when the Formula One comes every year, collecting plastic at the event, talking to the participants, the public that come, telling them about recycling, and then using the bottles we've collected over the 3-day event to make uniforms for the Yas Marina Circuit team for the following year. So every year they can wear uniforms made out of plastic from the collection from the year before. Yeah.
How companies measure and communicate their sustainability efforts?
Well, as I mentioned, we can provide certification. So if a company bought 1,000 polo shirts, for argument's sake, we can tell them the impact of that in terms of the savings of water, energy, carbon emissions, oil, and provide it in an impact report, which they can then provide as part of their own sustainability reporting for their stakeholders and shareholders. So it's something very tangible. They're not only doing something that they can say to customers and consumers, look, we're doing something green, they can prove it with tangible metrics.
Yeah, right. And for now, how do you work with clients to close the loop and recycle end-to-life garments?
So we only B2B, and that's important to us because we don't want to just create more textile pollution. But companies do need uniforms. And what we do is we work closely with them. Everything is made bespoke with their own messaging, logos, whatever they need on the product. And we do a range of products from regular t-shirts and polos to high spec, high tech, really bespoke, different kinds of textiles. So it's quite a close collaboration, and we do follow-up care, so we can provide end of life for recycling products after it's been used and it's finished with. So it's kind of like from the start to the beginning.
Yeah, right. And I have a curiosity by then, because when I talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
Really, they are worried that the polyester might have some kind of effect, a negative effect, because it's recycled. So that we have to talk about. And also that it might not be such good quality, which is completely wrong. They always think it's going to be a lot more expensive, which it really isn't. Yeah, and they're the main concerns, really.
Okay, interesting. And also, could you share a specific success story of a client who saw significant results using your solution?
Well, I mean, we've got such a broad range of clients, but we work with a lot of big brands. So companies like Jumeirah Group, Rove Hotels, local brands. We work with, as mentioned, Yas Marina Circuit. So, for example, with hotel groups, there's so many in the UAE, and it's hard to stand out. And we've got a really close relationship with Rove Hotels. And what they've found is they've been able to really talk directly to their consumer who are looking for hotels that are doing something a little bit more sustainable. They can collect the plastic that they're using in their room through the housekeeping teams, and then they can prove that that plastic really is being recycled by all their front of house staff are wearing uniforms made out of the plastic that we collect, and that has actually resonated with their clients, and we get a lot of really great feedback that they feel that story and that circular economy has really appealed to a section of their consumers that are looking for that. Other hotels don't provide.
Okay, interesting one. And now, looking at a broader industry, what key trends are you seeing emerge?
Well, what we'd really like to pursue is chemical recycling. At the moment, it's all mechanical. So I've talked about the flaking and the extruding, but we're now talking to companies that can actually break down the PET back into its monomer, or actually any plastic back into monomers. So what that means is you don't have to segregate so much. Plastic can be recycled together, and the monomers will be split out and broken down, and then they can be made back into what is almost like virgin plastic. And that is going to be a game changer because then you can recycle endlessly, and the quality will stay the same. So we're really in quite advanced talks to bringing that technology to the UAE. And we really feel that is something that will that will pave the future in recycling in general.
Okay, okay, interesting. And for example, what emerging technologies are you most excited about in sustainable fashion?
People understand sustainable fashion a lot more. So the high street brands are all starting to make commitments to moving much more into sustainable fabrics, moving away from the conventional way that they've worked in the past. And that is a very important message for the consumer, that going the same way is not sustainable. As we all know, the fashion industry is one of the top polluting industries in the world.
Yeah.
So much textile ends up in landfill. We can't continue to do that. I think fast fashion is one of the biggest concerns, and countries like France and Germany are really cracking down on these really super cheap, fast fashion items. So in France now, if something costs less than €5, it has a 100% tax on it. So it will hopefully make people think twice about buying a whole load of super, super cheap items and, maybe wearing one of them and throwing the rest away, which evidence shows that people do that. So I think governments stepping in and really supporting sustainable fabrics is important, but it's the businesses that will lead that.
Yeah, right, right. And in your opinion, what do you think most business owners are getting wrong when they're trying to address this specific problem?
I think that there is a lot of greenwashing. So I say people, companies want to do the right thing, but they don't have the right budgets, or they haven't really thought it through in terms of the lead times. It takes slightly longer, and they have to plan more in advance. So they're getting it wrong in the fact that they aren't really building it into the DNA of their businesses. And going forward, they're going to have to.
Mhm.
They're gonna have to rethink not just on their uniforms, but just being much greener in terms of their carbon footprint in general. And more governments are insisting that companies release reporting on their scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and they will have to do much more of that. So the landscape has to change. And if you're not thinking about that as a business now, then you're going to
Yeah,
really feel the pinch. Yeah.
yeah, right, right, right. So, what advice would you give to businesses looking to integrate sustainability into their supply chain?
Well, you have to plan and you have to budget. And these are important considerations. So sometimes being more sustainable is more of a long-term view. You can't just turn it on overnight. And also putting the right people in place. Many of the big companies now have sustainability teams. What we're finding a lot is that it will be just lumped into the HR department or the marketing department, and they might not have specialists who really know what to
Mhm.
do. So I think it's important that people have the right people in place, that they have the right planning, that they allocate budgets.
Okay, okay, see. And as you wrap up, what's next for DGrade Clothing? Any exciting developments on the horizon?
Well, we're always looking for investors. We want to grow. We've really developed amazingly strong partnerships a lot in the UAE. We are working internationally, but we'd like to grow that. We're also looking at this chemical recycling, and I think that's going to be a part of our future. But our dreams are to sort of like grow worldwide and to really develop Greenspun as a sort of go-to brand, as the mark of high quality recycled fabric.
Okay, okay, that's very interesting. And for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with DGrade Clothing, what's the best way to get in touch?
We have a website, dgrade.com, and we have a contact number on that, or they can email me, emma@dgrade.com. And if you Google us, you can find us and find a lot of ways to contact us.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, thank you for sharing those insights about you and the company and about the whole story. And thank you for this amazing podcast session.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Yep, thank you too. And see you in the next episode.
Bye.